It was a Tuesday morning when everything changed for Ryan. He was sitting in his usual spot in the back row of his engineering class, trying to stay awake after pulling an all-nighter studying for his physics exam. The professor was going on about some complex equation when Ryan noticed her for the first time. She was sitting 3 rows ahead, taking notes with unusual focus. Something about her seemed different from the other students. Maybe it was the way she dressed, more professional than the typical college crowd. Or maybe it was how she never seemed to check her phone like everyone else did. Ryan had been at State University for 3 years, and he thought he knew most of the faces in his department. But this woman looked older, maybe mid-20s, with long dark hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. She wore a simple black sweater and jeans. Nothing fancy, but she carried herself with a confidence that made her stand out. When class ended, Ryan packed his bag slowly, still thinking about the upcoming exam. He was one of the last students to leave when he heard a voice behind him. "Excuse me, are you in Professor Johnson's advanced mechanics class?" Ryan turned around to see the woman from 3 rows ahead. Up close, she was even more striking. Her eyes were a deep green, and when she smiled, it seemed genuine and warm. "Yeah, I am. Are you thinking about taking it?" Ryan asked, adjusting his backpack. "I'm actually auditing a few classes here. I'm Lisa, by the way." She extended her hand with a friendly smile. "I couldn't help but notice you seem to really understand the material. Professor Johnson's explanations sometimes go over my head." Ryan felt a small boost to his ego. He'd always been good at math and science, but it wasn't often that someone noticed, especially not someone like Lisa. "I'm Ryan, and honestly, I just spend way too much time studying." "Are you a graduate student?" "Something like that," Lisa said with a slight laugh. "I'm doing some independent research." "Listen, I know this might sound forward, but would you be interested in grabbing coffee sometime? I could really use someone to help me understand some of these concepts better." Ryan felt his heart skip a beat. It had been months since his last relationship ended, and he'd been so focused on his studies that he barely talked to anyone outside of his roommate, Jake, and his study group. "Sure, that sounds great," Ryan said, trying to sound casual despite the excitement building in his chest. "Perfect. How about tomorrow after your morning classes? There's a nice cafe just off campus." They exchanged phone numbers, and Lisa suggested they meet at Common Grounds, a small coffee shop that Ryan had never been to before. As she walked away, Ryan couldn't help but watch her go. There was something about her that he couldn't quite put his finger on, but he felt drawn to her in a way he hadn't experienced in a long time. That evening, Ryan was back in his dorm room, trying to focus on his textbook, but finding his mind wandering to his coffee date with Lisa. His roommate Jake walked in, carrying a bag of takeout from their favorite Chinese restaurant. "You look different," Jake said, setting the food down on his desk. "Did something happen today?" Ryan told Jake about meeting Lisa, and he couldn't help but smile as he described their conversation. "Wait, let me get this straight," Jake said, opening his container of fried rice. "This woman just walked up to you after class and asked you out for coffee?" "It's not really a date," Ryan said, though he secretly hoped it might turn into one. "She wants help with the coursework." "Dude, that's how it starts. A woman who looks like you described doesn't need help with engineering homework. She's into you." Ryan felt his confidence grow. Maybe Jake was right. Maybe Lisa was interested in more than just academic help. The next day, Ryan arrived at Common Grounds 15 minutes early. He'd changed his shirt 3 times that morning and had spent extra time making sure his hair looked right. The cafe was smaller than he'd expected, with only a handful of tables and a cozy atmosphere. Lisa arrived right on time, looking effortlessly beautiful in a light blue dress that brought out her eyes. She ordered a complicated coffee drink that Ryan had never heard of, while he stuck with his usual black coffee. "So tell me about yourself." "Ryan," Lisa said as they settled into a corner table, "what made you choose engineering?" Ryan found himself opening up in a way he rarely did with new people. He told her about growing up in a small town, how his dad was a mechanic and had always encouraged him to understand how things worked. He talked about his dreams of maybe working for a tech company after graduation, or possibly going on to graduate school. That's really impressive, Lisa said, leaning forward with genuine interest. You seem so focused and determined. I admire that in a person. As their conversation continued, Ryan noticed that Lisa was an excellent listener. She asked thoughtful questions and seemed genuinely interested in his answers. But whenever he tried to turn the conversation back to her, she would deflect with another question about him. What about your family? Lisa asked. Are they supportive of your studies? Ryan told her about his parents, how they called every Sunday, and how proud they were that he was the first in his family to go to college. He mentioned that his mom sometimes worried about him being so far from home, and that his dad had taught him to be independent from a young age. That's wonderful that you have such a strong support system, Lisa said. Do you have a lot of friends here at school? Not really, Ryan admitted. I mean, I have Jake, my roommate, and there are people in my study group, but I tend to keep to myself. I guess I'm pretty focused on my grades, Lisa nodded knowingly. I can tell you're the type of person who puts education first. That's really admirable. A lot of people your age are more interested in partying than building a future. Ryan felt understood in a way he rarely did. Most people his age thought he was too serious, too focused on his studies. But Lisa seemed to appreciate these qualities about him. Their coffee date stretched into 2 hours, and by the end, Ryan felt like he'd known Lisa for much longer than just 2 days. When she suggested they meet again the following week, he eagerly agreed. I really enjoyed this, Lisa said as they walked out of the cafe together. You're easy to talk to, Ryan. I hope we can become good friends. As Ryan walked back to his dorm, he felt lighter than he had in months. There was something special about Lisa, something that made him want to know more about her. He found himself already looking forward to their next meeting. Back in his room, Jake was waiting with a curious expression. So how did it go? Jake asked. Really well, Ryan said, unable to hide his smile. She's amazing, Jake. Smart, beautiful. And she actually listens when I talk. That's great, man. But did you learn anything about her? Like what she's studying or where she's from? Ryan paused, realizing that despite their long conversation, he still knew very little about Lisa's background. Every time he'd asked about her, she'd somehow turn the conversation back to him. She's doing some kind of independent research, Ryan said. She didn't go into a lot of detail. Jake raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything more. Ryan brushed off his roommate's obvious concern. So what if Lisa was a little mysterious? That just made her more interesting. Over the next few days, Ryan found himself thinking about Lisa constantly. He would catch himself looking for her in his classes, hoping to see her again before their next planned meeting. When she texted him to suggest they meet at the library instead of the cafe, he was thrilled that she was thinking about him too. But as excited as Ryan was about this new connection, he had no idea that his life was about to take a turn that would change everything he thought he knew about trust, safety, and the people we let into our lives. The woman who had walked into his ordinary Tuesday morning was about to turn his world upside down in ways he could never have imagined. 2 weeks had passed since Ryan first met Lisa, and their coffee meetings had become the highlight of his week. She always seemed to know exactly what to say to make him feel special, like he was the most interesting person in the world. Today was different, though. Instead of meeting at their usual cafe, Lisa had invited him to her apartment for what she called a proper study session. I have all the textbooks we need, plus I can actually cook us a real meal instead of just grabbing snacks, Lisa had said with that warm smile that made Ryan's heart race. My place is much quieter than the library, too. We can actually focus without all those distractions. Ryan had hesitated for just a moment. Something about the invitation felt like a big step. But Lisa had been nothing but kind and helpful over the past 2 weeks. She'd even helped him understand some difficult concepts that had been giving him trouble in class. That sounds perfect, Ryan had finally said. What can I bring? Just yourself. Lisa had replied, I'll take care of everything else now. standing outside Lisa's apartment building. Ryan felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. The building was about 20 minutes from campus, in a quiet residential area he'd never visited before. It was older than the modern dorms and apartments most students lived in. With thick brick walls and small windows, Lisa answered the door, wearing a simple green dress that made her eyes sparkle. Her apartment was cozy and well decorated, with soft lighting and the smell of something delicious cooking in the kitchen. "Welcome to my humble home," Lisa said, taking his jacket. "I hope you're hungry. I made your favorite." Ryan was touched that she remembered he'd mentioned loving Italian food. During one of their conversations, the apartment felt warm and inviting, with comfortable furniture and books scattered around. Classical music played softly in the background. "This is really nice," Ryan said, looking around. "How long have you lived here?" "A few years now," Lisa said, leading him toward the kitchen. "I like my privacy. It's nice to have a space that's truly your own, you know." The kitchen smelled amazing, and Ryan's stomach rumbled as Lisa stirred something on the stove. She handed him a glass of red wine, even though he mentioned before that he didn't drink much. "Just a little to help us relax," she said with a laugh. "We're going to be studying for hours. Might as well make it enjoyable." Ryan took a small sip. The wine was stronger than he expected, but he didn't want to seem ungrateful. Lisa had gone to so much trouble to make this evening special. They sat down to eat, and the conversation flowed as easily as it always did. Lisa asked about his classes, his plans for the weekend, and whether he'd talked to his parents recently. She remembered every detail he'd ever shared with her, which made him feel like she really cared about getting to know him. "You know, Ryan," Lisa said, refilling his wine glass even though he'd barely touched it, "I've really enjoyed getting to know you these past few weeks. You're not like other guys your age." "What do you mean?" Ryan asked, feeling the wine making him slightly lightheaded. "You're mature, focused, genuine. Most people are so superficial these days, but you actually care about things that matter. You have real depth." Ryan felt his cheeks warm, whether from the wine or the compliment. He wasn't sure. "That's really nice of you to say. I mean it," Lisa said, reaching across the table to touch his hand. "I feel like I can be myself around you. That's rare." As they finished dinner, Ryan noticed he was feeling more tired than usual. The wine must have been stronger than he thought. When Lisa suggested they move to the living room to start studying, he found himself moving more slowly than normal. "Are you okay?" Lisa asked, her voice full of concern. "You look a little pale." "I think maybe I'm just tired," Ryan said, sitting down heavily on the couch. "I didn't sleep much last night." "Poor thing," Lisa said, sitting close beside him. "You worked too hard. Maybe we should skip the studying tonight and just relax." Ryan tried to focus on what she was saying, but his thoughts felt cloudy. He blinked several times, trying to clear his head, but the room seemed to be spinning slightly. "I should probably head back to the dorm," he said, starting to stand up. "I don't want to fall asleep on your couch." "Nonsense," Lisa said, her hand on his arm. "You're in no condition to walk back to campus. Why don't you just rest here for a bit? I'll make you some coffee." Ryan nodded, though something in the back of his mind felt wrong. He couldn't quite put his finger on what it was, but he felt like he was thinking through thick fog, actually. "Let me just call Jake to come pick me up," Ryan said, reaching for his phone. But his movements felt clumsy, and he nearly dropped it. "Your phone died," Lisa said quickly, though Ryan was sure he'd seen it at full battery when he arrived. "Don't worry about it. I'll take good care of you." The room was definitely spinning now, and Ryan felt a wave of nausea wash over him. This wasn't just tiredness or wine. Something was seriously wrong. "Lisa," he said, his voice sounding strange to his own ears, "I think something's wrong. I feel really sick." "You're fine," Lisa said, but her voice sounded different now, less warm, more controlled. "You just need to rest." Ryan tried to stand up again, but his legs felt like jelly. The room tilted dangerously, and he had to grab the arm of the couch to keep from falling. "I need to leave," he said, panic starting to cut through the fog in his mind. "Something's not right," You're not going anywhere, Lisa said. And now her voice was completely different, cold. Determined. You're exactly where you need to be. Ryan stumbled toward the door, but found it harder to move than it should have been. When he reached for the handle, it wouldn't turn. He tried again, his heart starting to race despite the strange heaviness in his limbs. Why won't it open? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Because I don't want you to leave. Lisa said simply, I've been waiting for someone like you for such a long time, Ryan. Someone who would understand, someone who would appreciate what I'm offering. Ryan's mind was struggling to process what was happening. The woman who had been so kind, so interested in his life, was now standing between him and the door with an expression he'd never seen before. What did you put in my drink? He asked, leaning against the wall for support, just something to help you relax. Lisa said, Don't fight it, Ryan. This is so much better than that lonely dorm room, isn't it? Here, you don't have to worry about anything. I'll take care of everything. The last thing Ryan remembered clearly was Lisa's voice, soft and almost loving, saying words that would haunt him for a long time to come. You're mine now, Ryan. You're mine forever. When he woke up, everything had changed. The cozy apartment, the warm lighting, the classical music, it all felt like a dream now, or maybe a nightmare. Because Ryan was no longer in the living room where he'd fallen asleep. He was somewhere else entirely, somewhere that made his blood run cold and his heart pound with a terror he'd never experienced before. The woman he thought he knew, the woman he'd trusted, had shown him who she really was, and Ryan realized that his life would never be the same again. Ryan woke up with the worst headache of his life. His mouth felt like cotton, and every muscle in his body ached. For a moment, he thought he was back in his dorm room after a particularly rough night of studying. But as his eyes slowly adjusted to the dim light, he realized he wasn't anywhere familiar. He was lying on a narrow bed in what looked like a basement room. The walls were concrete, painted a cheerful yellow that somehow made everything feel even more wrong. There was a small window near the ceiling, but it was covered with thick metal bars. A single bulb hung from the ceiling, casting harsh shadows across the room. Good morning. Sleepyhead, came Lisa's voice from somewhere behind him. Ryan sat up, quickly, and immediately regretted it as the room spun around him. Lisa was sitting in a chair near the door, watching him with the same warm smile she'd always worn during their coffee. Dates? Where am I? Ryan asked, his voice hoarse and barely recognizable. You're home, Lisa said simply. Our home. Ryan looked around the small room again. Besides the bed, there was a small desk with some books on it, a chair, and what looked like a bathroom area partially hidden behind a curtain. Everything was clean and organized, like someone had put a lot of thought into making it comfortable. This isn't my home, Ryan said, trying to stand up. His legs were shaky, but he managed to get to his feet. I want to go back to my dorm. That old place, Lisa laughed. But it wasn't the warm laugh he remembered. Ryan, you hated that tiny room. You told me yourself how lonely you felt there. Here, you don't have to worry about any of that. Ryan walked to the door and tried the handle. It was locked, just like the apartment door had been. But this wasn't a regular door lock. This was something heavy-duty, something that had been installed, specifically to keep people in. Let me out, Ryan said, his voice getting stronger as the fear began to override the effects of whatever she'd given him. I can't do that, Lisa said, her voice still calm and pleasant. You're not ready yet. You need time to adjust, to understand what I'm offering you. What you're offering me. Ryan turned to face her, anger mixing with his fear. You've locked me in a basement. This is crazy. Please don't use that word, Lisa said, and for the first time, her voice had a sharp edge to it. I'm not crazy. I'm in love. There's a difference. Ryan stared at her, trying to process what she'd just said. Love, we've known each other for 2 weeks. We've had coffee a few times. This isn't love, Lisa. This is what love looks like when you're not afraid of it, Lisa interrupted. When you're not worried about what other people think or what society expects. I know you, Ryan. I know you better than anyone ever has. She stood up and walked to the desk, picking up a thick folder that Ryan hadn't noticed before. Do you want to see how well I know you? Before Ryan could answer, she opened the folder and began pulling out papers, photos, documents. Ryan's heart sank as he realized what he was looking at. Your class schedule from last semester, Lisa said, laying out the papers on the desk. Your favorite study spots in the library, the route you take to get your morning coffee, your parents' phone number and address, your high school yearbook photo. Ryan felt sick. How did you get all this? I've been watching you for months, Ryan. Long before I introduced myself in Professor Johnson's class, I knew you were special. From the moment I first saw you walking across campus, you've been stalking me, Ryan said, the words coming out as barely a whisper. I've been caring about you, Lisa corrected. I've been learning about the person I love. Do you know how rare it is to find someone who truly understands you? Someone who sees past the surface to who you really are. Ryan looked at the photos spread across the desk. Pictures of him walking to class, sitting in the library, eating lunch alone. There were dozens of them, taken over what must have been months. His hands were shaking as he picked up one of the photos. You're insane, he said, immediately regretting the words as Lisa's face darkened. I told you not to use that word, she said, her voice dangerous now. I'm not insane. I'm the only person who's ever truly seen you, Ryan. Your parents call once a week and ask about your grades. Your roommate barely notices when you're there or not, but I know everything about you. I know you stay up late on Thursday nights because you're worried about your Friday morning exam. I know you eat the same sandwich for lunch every day because you're too shy to try new things. I know you're lonely, even though you pretend you're not. Each word hit Ryan like a physical blow because, terrifyingly, they were all true. Lisa did know him in ways that no one else did. But this wasn't how you were supposed to know someone. This was wrong on every level. My roommate Jake will notice I'm missing, Ryan said, trying to keep his voice steady. People will look for me. Jake thinks you went home for a family emergency. Lisa said casually, I sent him a text from your phone last night. Very sweet message about how your grandmother was sick and you had to leave town suddenly. Ryan's heart sank even further. My phone, safe and sound, Lisa said, patting her pocket. I've been answering your messages. Don't worry. I know exactly how you write. No one will suspect anything. My parents will know something's wrong when I don't call them Sunday, Ryan said desperately. Actually, you already called them. Lisa said with a smile. Well, I did. I told them you were really busy with a big project and might not be able to call as regularly for a while. They were very understanding. Ryan felt like the walls were closing in around him. Lisa had thought of everything. She'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. Every conversation they'd had, every question she'd asked about his life, his routine, his relationships, it had all been preparation for this moment. What do you want from me? Ryan asked, slumping back down on the bed. I want you to be happy. Lisa said, her voice warm again. I want you to understand that everything I've done has been for us. For our future together. This isn't a future. Ryan said, this is a prison. This is protection, Lisa corrected. From the world that never appreciated you the way I do. From all those people who took you for granted. Here, you're safe. Here, you're loved. Lisa walked over to a small refrigerator that Ryan hadn't noticed before. She pulled out a sandwich and a bottle of water, setting them on the desk. You need to eat something, she said. You haven't had a proper meal since yesterday. I'm not hungry. Ryan said, though his stomach was growling. You need to keep your strength up, Lisa said firmly. I've made all your favorites. Everything I know you like. Ryan looked at the sandwich. It was exactly the kind he always ordered at the campus cafe. Ham and cheese on wheat bread. No mustard, extra lettuce. The fact that she knew this detail, this tiny preference, made everything feel even more terrifying. How long are you planning to keep me here? Ryan asked. This isn't about time, Lisa said. This is about understanding. Once you realize what I'm offering you, you won't want to leave. And if I never realized that, Lisa's smile faltered for just a moment. and Ryan saw something cold flash in her eyes. "You will," she said simply. "You just need time to adjust. Everyone does at first." The way she said everyone made Ryan's blood run cold. "What do you mean, everyone?" But Lisa had already turned toward the door, pulling out a set of keys that she kept on a chain around her neck. "I'll be back in a few hours with dinner," she said. "Try to rest. Try to think about what I've told you." "Wait," Ryan called out, but the door was already closing. He heard multiple locks clicking into place, and then footsteps moving away across what sounded like a concrete floor above him. Ryan was alone in the yellow room, surrounded by evidence of Lisa's months-long obsession with his life. As he sat there in the dim light, he realized that his situation was far worse than he'd initially thought. This wasn't some impulsive act of a lonely person. This was calculated, planned, and executed by someone who had been watching him for months. And the most terrifying part was that he had no idea how long she'd been doing this, or if he was really the first person to end up in this room. 6 weeks had passed since Ryan's world turned upside down, and tonight was finally the night. After weeks of careful planning and patient manipulation, Lisa had agreed to let him sit outside in her backyard for a few minutes. It had taken everything. He had to convince her, but his strategy of appearing grateful and content had finally paid off. "Remember, just 15 minutes, Lisa said as she unlocked the basement door. "And stay close to the house where I can see you." "I understand," Ryan said, trying to keep the excitement out of his voice. "Thank you for trusting me with this," Lisa smiled, and Ryan could see how much his gratitude meant to her. Over the past few weeks, he'd become an expert at reading her moods, knowing exactly what to say to keep her happy and calm. They walked upstairs together, and Ryan got his first real look at Lisa's house since that first terrible night. It was neat and organized, but he noticed heavy curtains on all the windows and multiple locks on every door. This wasn't just a home, it was a fortress. The backyard was small and surrounded by a tall wooden fence. Lisa had obviously chosen this place carefully, even if the neighbors were home. They wouldn't be able to see into the yard, but Ryan had been planning for this moment for weeks, and he'd already spotted his opportunity. "The fresh air feels amazing," Ryan said, sitting down on the back steps. Lisa sat beside him, close enough to grab him if he tried to run. "I'm glad you're happy," Lisa said, resting her head on his shoulder. "I was worried about bringing you up here, but you've been so good lately." Ryan had to fight not to tense up at her touch, even after all this time. Having her close to him made his skin crawl, but he learned to hide his reactions, to play the part she needed him to play. "Lisa," he said softly, "I need to tell you something." "What is it?" "I think I'm starting to love you too," Ryan said, the words tasting like poison in his mouth. Lisa sat up quickly, her eyes wide with surprise and joy. "Really? Do you mean that?" "I do," Ryan said, taking her hands in his. "I was so scared at first, but now I understand what you were trying to show me. No one has ever cared about me the way you do." Tears started flowing down Lisa's face, and Ryan could see that she was completely overwhelmed by emotion. This was exactly what he'd been hoping for, a moment when her guard was completely down. "I love you so much," Lisa whispered, leaning in to kiss him. Ryan closed his eyes and let it happen, knowing that this was the price he had to pay for his freedom. When Lisa pulled away, she was smiling through her tears. "I have something for you," she said, reaching into her pocket. "I was waiting for the right moment to give it to you." She pulled out a small silver ring and held it out to him. "I want us to be together forever, Ryan. Will you wear this for me?" Ryan stared at the ring, feeling sick. This wasn't just about control anymore. In Lisa's mind, they were getting engaged. But he forced himself to smile and hold out his hand. "It's beautiful," he said as she slipped the ring onto his finger. "Thank you. Now we're really together," Lisa said, kissing him again. "Nothing can separate us now." But while Lisa was distracted by her happiness, Ryan was putting the final part of his plan into motion. Earlier that week, he noticed that Lisa always carried her phone in her back pocket, and that she always sat on his right side when they were together. Now, with her attention completely focused on the moment. He carefully slipped his hand around her waist and slowly worked her phone out of her pocket. "I love you too," Ryan whispered in her ear, using the moment of intimacy to hide what he was doing with his hands. "Say it again," Lisa said, her voice full of emotion. "I love you," Ryan repeated, while quickly typing a message on her phone. He memorized Jake's number weeks ago, hoping for exactly this opportunity. The message was simple: "Help me, 1247 Oak Street, basement, call police." Ryan he managed to hit send just as Lisa started to pull away from their embrace. Quickly, he slipped the phone back into her pocket, hoping she wouldn't notice. "We should go back inside," Lisa said, suddenly seeming nervous about being outside. "I don't want the neighbors to see us." "Of course," Ryan said, standing up. "Whatever makes you feel comfortable." They went back into the house, and Lisa locked the door behind them with her usual multiple locks. As they walked back toward the basement, Ryan's heart was pounding. He'd done everything he could. Now he just had to hope that Jake would see the message and take it seriously. "Thank you for tonight," Ryan said as they reached the basement door. "It meant everything to me." "I'm so happy," Lisa said, hugging him tightly. "I was right about you, Ryan. I knew you'd understand eventually." Back in the yellow room, Ryan lay on his bed and tried to stay calm. He had no way of knowing if his message had gone through, or if Jake would believe it was really from him. For all he knew, Lisa might check her phone and discover what he'd done. If that happened, he didn't want to think about what might happen to him. Hours passed, and Ryan was starting to lose hope when he heard something that made his heart leap. Cars pulling up outside. Multiple cars, from the sound of it. Then voices, loud and authoritative. "Police, open the door." Ryan heard Lisa's footsteps running around upstairs, panicked and desperate. He could hear her shouting something, but he couldn't make out the words Ryan. He called out as loudly as he could. "I'm down here, in the basement." The next few minutes were chaos. Ryan could hear Lisa arguing with someone upstairs, her voice getting higher and more desperate. Then there were footsteps on the basement stairs, and suddenly the door to his room was opening. "Ryan Thompson?" asked a police officer, and Ryan had never been so happy to hear his own name. "That's me," Ryan said, sitting up on the bed. "I'm okay. I'm alive." More officers poured into the room, followed by paramedics who immediately started checking him over. Everything was moving so fast that Ryan could barely process what was happening. "Your friend Jake got your message," one of the officers explained. "Smart thinking, getting that text out. We've been looking for you for weeks." "Is Lisa?" Ryan started to ask. "She's in custody," the officer said. "She's not going to hurt you anymore." As the paramedics helped him up the stairs, Ryan got a glimpse of Lisa being led away in handcuffs. She looked completely broken, crying and calling out his name. "Ryan, please. Tell them you want to stay. Tell them you love me, for just a moment." Ryan felt a flash of pity for her, despite everything she'd done to him. He could see that in her twisted mind, she really believed she'd been showing him love. But then he remembered the other person she'd mentioned, the one who was gone, and his sympathy disappeared. Outside, Ryan saw Jake waiting by one of the police cars, and his roommate's face lit up when he saw him. "Dude, I thought you were dead," Jake said, tears in his eyes as he hugged Ryan tightly. "When I got that text, I didn't know if it was really you or some kind of trick." "It was really me," Ryan said. "Thank you for believing it was me. Thank you for calling the police. Your parents are flying in tonight," Jake said. "Everyone's been so worried. The whole campus has been looking for you." As Ryan sat in the ambulance, giving his statement to detectives, he realized that his ordeal was over, but his recovery was just beginning. Lisa had taken 6 weeks of his life, but she hadn't taken his spirit. He'd survived by using his intelligence and patience, and most importantly, he'd saved himself. Months later, Ryan would testify at Lisa's trial, helping to ensure that she got the help she needed while also making sure she could never hurt anyone else the way she'd hurt him. He'd learned that there had indeed been someone before him, but thankfully, that person had also survived and escaped before Ryan's ordeal began. The experience changed Ryan in ways He was still discovering. He was more cautious about trusting people, but he was also stronger and more confident than he'd ever been before. He faced the worst situation he could imagine and had found a way to survive it. Most importantly, he learned that sometimes the only person who can save you is yourself, and that even in the darkest moments, hope and intelligence can light the way to freedom. 3 weeks had passed since Ryan woke up in the yellow room, and he was slowly losing his mind. The routine was always the same. Lisa would bring him meals 3 times a day, sit with him while he ate, and try to have conversations like they were a normal couple. She'd talk about her day, ask about the books she'd brought him to read, and act like nothing unusual was happening. But Ryan had been thinking. During the long hours alone, he'd been studying Lisa's behavior, trying to understand what made her tick. He'd noticed things about her that he'd missed before. The way her mood could change instantly if he said the wrong thing. How she seemed to need constant reassurance that he was happy. Most importantly, he'd realized that she desperately wanted him to care about her. "You seem different today," Lisa said as she set down his lunch tray. More relaxed, Ryan looked up at her and managed a small smile. It was the first time he'd smiled at her since this whole nightmare began, and he could see how much it meant to her. Her whole face lit up. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," Ryan said carefully, "about what you said about us." Lisa sat down in her usual chair, but she scooted it closer to the bed than normal. "And what have you been thinking?" "I think I was scared at first," Ryan said, choosing his words very carefully. "Change is always scary, you know. But maybe you're right. Maybe I was lonely before." It wasn't entirely a lie. Ryan had been lonely. But this wasn't the solution to loneliness. This was something else entirely. Still, he could see that his words were exactly what Lisa wanted to hear. "I knew you'd understand eventually," Lisa said, her voice soft with emotion. "You just needed time to see what I was offering you." "Tell me more about yourself," Ryan said, leaning forward slightly. "I feel like I've been so focused on my own feelings that I haven't really gotten to know you." For the next hour, Lisa talked more than she ever had before. She told Ryan about her childhood, how her parents had divorced when she was young, how she'd always felt like people abandoned her just when she started to care about them. She talked about college, about jobs she'd had, about relationships that had ended badly. "Everyone always leaves," Lisa said, and Ryan could hear real pain in her voice. "Just when I think someone understands me, they find an excuse to walk away." "That must have been really hard," Ryan said, and for a moment, he actually felt sorry for her. Then he remembered where he was and why he was there. "It was," Lisa said, "until I found you. You're different, Ryan. You're not going to leave me." The way she said it sent chills down Ryan's spine, but he kept his expression neutral. "Can I ask you something? Anything? Have you ever brought anyone else here?" Ryan asked as gently as he could. Lisa's expression changed immediately. The warmth disappeared from her eyes, replaced by something cold and defensive. "Why would you ask me that?" she said. "I'm just curious about your life," Ryan said quickly. "I want to understand you better." Lisa was quiet for a long moment, studying his face. Finally, she spoke. "There was someone else," she said slowly, "before you, but it didn't work out." "What happened?" "He wasn't like you," Lisa said. "He didn't appreciate what I was trying to give him. He was angry all the time, always trying to escape. He never understood that I was trying to love him." Ryan felt sick, but he forced himself to keep asking questions. "Where is he now?" "He's gone," Lisa said simply. "He made his choice." The way she said it made Ryan's blood run cold. He didn't want to think about what gone might mean, but he also realized that Lisa had just given him valuable information. She'd done this before, and it hadn't ended well for the other person. "I don't want to make the same mistakes he did," Ryan said carefully. "You won't," Lisa said, reaching over to touch his hand. "You're smarter than he was. You understand love when you see it." Over the following days, Ryan continued his careful campaign to gain Lisa's trust. He ate the meals she brought without complaint. He thanked her for the books and actually read them so they could discuss them together. He asked questions about her day and listened patiently to her answers slowly. Lisa began to relax around him. She started staying longer during her visits, sometimes for hours at a time. She brought a small television down to the room so they could watch movies together. She even brought him a guitar, remembering that he mentioned playing a little bit during one of their coffee dates. "You're so much happier now," Lisa said one evening as they watched an old romantic comedy together. "I can see it in your eyes. I feel more at peace," Ryan said, which was partially true. He did feel more in control of his situation, even if he wasn't any closer to freedom. "I love seeing you like this," Lisa said, leaning against his shoulder. "This is how it's supposed to be." Ryan had to fight every instinct in his body not to pull away from her touch. But he learned that any sign of rejection would set her off, and he couldn't afford to lose the progress he made. "Lisa," he said softly, "can I ask you for something?" "Of course." "I miss the sun," Ryan said. "I know you're worried about me leaving. But do you think someday I could sit outside for a little while? Just in the backyard, maybe?" Lisa tensed up immediately. "That's not safe," she said. "People might see you." "What if it was at night?" Ryan suggested. "Just for a few minutes. I trust you, Lisa. I'm not going to try to run away." "How do I know that?" Lisa asked, suspicion creeping into her voice. "Because I understand now," Ryan said, looking directly into her eyes. "I understand what you're offering me, what we have together." Lisa studied his face for a long moment. Ryan could see her internal struggle, wanting to believe him, but afraid to take the risk. "Maybe," she said finally, "if you keep showing me that you're happy here. If you prove to me that you really understand, I will," Ryan said. "I promise." That night, after Lisa had gone upstairs and locked all the doors, Ryan lay awake planning. He'd been working on this for weeks now, slowly building her trust, learning her routines, studying her weaknesses. Lisa needed to feel loved and appreciated, but she also needed to feel in control. If he could find a way to give her both of those things while creating an opportunity for escape, he might have a chance, but he also knew he was walking a dangerous line. Lisa had already told him about someone else who had been in this room before him, someone who was now gone. Ryan didn't want to end up the same way. He'd noticed other things too. Sometimes Lisa would disappear for hours during the day, and he could hear her moving around upstairs, talking on the phone in a voice that sounded completely different from the one she used with him. Once, he'd heard what sounded like someone knocking on the front door, and Lisa's panicked footsteps as she ran to answer it. There was a world outside this basement, a world where people were looking for him. Jake, his parents, maybe even the police. But Lisa had been very careful to cover her tracks, and Ryan was starting to realize that if he was going to get out of this situation, he was going to have to save himself. The question was whether he could do it without pushing Lisa too far, without triggering whatever had happened to the person who had been here before him. As Ryan stared at the ceiling in the dim light, he knew that everything depended on his next move.